All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And tonight I was sitting in the shop and I was trying to mess around with some tumblers. Had some people asking me to do another tumbler video. XCS has gotten some updates since the last time I used any of xTool software to do tumblers. I have done a few in Lightburn, but a lot of you guys were asking me about, can the F1 do tumblers and how would you go about doing tumblers with the F1? So tonight we're going to cover that, and I'm going to show you guys how I went and tried to replicate the logo that is on my shirt on this orange cup right here and show you the results that I got. And this is an evenly spaced wrap all the way around the cup. It has a total of 4 logos all the way around it. And it took a minute because this is a 10-watt diode, so it's not going to be fast, guys. But if you want to do it, you want to have this kind of results, consistent all the way around. It's consistent. There's no wiggle, no wobble. If you want to see how I did it, let me show you how to set it up in XCS and also how to physically set up the RA2 to get these kind of results. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right, guys, so the most important thing when doing tumblers is you got to make sure everything's secure. You don't want your chuck or your roller, you don't want it moving around everywhere. So the problem that I had when I first started setting this up is I had never used the chuck with the F1. So I went over to xTool's website, pulled up the manual just to see how they were going to index this thing in here to make sure it didn't move. And guys, this is what I saw. Okay, that is not acceptable. Basically, what they were saying to do was to take this little piece of material here that comes out of the hole in the machine, set it over to the side, use it as a spacer to try to get the RA2 level. And that's okay, I guess, but what's to keep it from twisting? It also said to use these little lines on the bed to align the edge of the RA2 to make sure that it's square with the machine. And guys, that's great and all, but what's to keep it from sliding off of those lines? So before I could even start to try to do this video and show you guys how to do a tumbler, I went ahead and created myself this little jig right here. But once you get the 3 parts glued together, you're gonna have, I've got score marks back here that marks where this piece goes onto the bottom, and then you just line this one up with the outer edge. Get those glued together with the glue of your choice, and you set this guy in this hole. And once you do, you can get by with only using one if you want. Just take one of these little screws that come with the L bracket, and you'll be able to just barely get it into the hole and then snug it down onto the jig. And that's going to provide it with a nice firm base, and it's going to keep it from popping out of that hole if you put too much weight on there. And then, guys, all you got to do with your machine to set it up is kind of slide it down into this groove, and this is going to be kind of snug. I did that on purpose. I made this to where it doesn't slide easily. You're going to have to kind of give it a little push to get it to where you want it. But that's so that as you're chucking in the next tumbler, and you don't have to worry about it just slipping and sliding. Now, if you use this thing a lot, it could get a little loose and you may need to rebuild it. But I've took this one in and out 5 or 6 times tonight doing the testing, and it works fine. Once you chuck the tumbler in, because of the way everything's set up, it's just going to sit in there and it's not going to move. You can almost pick the machine up by the RA2 just from the friction fit that's in there. You just want to make sure it's sitting firm, put your tumbler in there, line everything up, and go from there. So let's move over to the computer, and I'm going to show you how I set this burn up in XCS to do that tumbler. So the very first step you're going to want to do is to get the size of your tumbler. Now, you can use one of the tapes, or you can measure across the center of the tumbler. But the one thing that I will advise you, if you're going to measure across the center, make sure you're in the center. XCS allows you to enter either the radius or the perimeter, as they call it, which is actually the circumference of the round area. They also include, with the RA2, you get that little seamstress measuring tape, and that's pretty good for round objects. But when you put that in, you're going to have to make sure you put it in as the perimeter and not as the diameter. So just that part is going to be on you guys. So make sure you measure it correctly or your graphic will be skewed. So let's get down into XCS, and I'll show you how to lay this stuff out and give you some tips on how to do a full wrap, or at least evenly spaced logos like I did on the other one. So let's get down into XCS. All right, guys. So before anyone asks, I'm going to reveal to you the settings that I used to get this result on these orange Hassel Outfitter tumblers. And I will have a link down below if you want to get some and try it. But keep in mind, not even from batch to batch, there can be variations. So as you can see here, I'm running the blue light. I've got it at 100% power. I'm running 70 millimeters a second. Coincidentally, my old xTool D1, that is the power and speed that I ran with it. That's why I started out with this during my testing. All right, lines per centimeter. I ran 300 in order to get this black effect. You don't have to run 300 if you do run 300 on and you don't want the black effect. You'll have to adjust the speed and find the appropriate power to get it to where it's shiny, or whatever effect you're going for speed and power. But these settings right here is what I use to get the black result using the F1 on these Hassel Outfitter orange tumblers. So there's that. So make sure you write that down if you were interested in that part, because I figure a lot of people are going to be asking me about it. So we've got the tumbler set. Is 87 millimeters in diameter is what I went with, which makes it 273.3. So this little shape right here, this is a tool line. I've got it not outputting. This is simply using for design. So we're going to go over here and I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio of it. We're going to leave that at 60 and we're going to set this to 273.3 and hit enter or just click on another box. Well, when you do that, you're going to get this long shape here. That is basically the entire surface of your tumbler. So in the situation that I had, if I wanted to take that logo and put that logo, but I wanted to put it right there on the edge of the tumbler. And what you're going to have to remember is, hang on, let me get my logo where I can talk. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to scale it to fit on the canvas this time. I recommend leaving that set to select every time. I'm going to rotate this to the left because of the way I've got my tumbler oriented. It needs to be rotated to the left. And I'm going to go ahead, click on that, and I'm going to resize it as well. I'm going to leave the aspect ratio locked, and I'm going to set it to 60. And that's going to resize it to the appropriate size to fit in my engravable area. Now, what you want to do, keep in mind, if you're looking at your RA2 and you've got it set up, this green line right here is the area that is directly up. So this is the area that is directly up when you start the engrave. As it engraves, it's going to turn this direction as indicated by this little, and this is going to be up, 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 up. It's going to burn this way. So you're laying out basically your canvas to be the size of the surface area of the tumbler. And this, in essence, this line right here is going to touch this line right here. So if you do decide, I want two graphics, if you take these two and you place it down here, once you placed it here, what is going to happen is you're going to have these two touching, because this line and this line are going to be touching. So you don't want to do that. So the easiest way, if you're just wanting to put two graphics opposite sides of the tumbler, is to take your overall size of your tumbler, which I'm going to click on that right there. All right, 273.3. And just to kind of share my math, we're going to do 273.3, and I'm going to divide that by 2. That gives me the 136.65. So we're going to go back to this shape, well, this shape, and we're going to change this to 136.65, leaving the aspect ratio unlocked because I don't want it to change that. Now, what you'll notice is I've only got half of the work area. But if you take this guy now and you align it with this line right there, then what you're going to end up with is this is half of your tumbler in this little square right here. This is the other half down here. Now, if you're only doing two, all you really need to know is the distance between those two is correct. Now, but if you wanted to do more, then you're going to either have to take, you can actually take and copy this guy and paste it in here. And one cool thing about XCS that they used to didn't do is now you can kind of drag things and you can space them appropriately. So like right there, if you look, I've got 8.53 millimeters between those two. So now I can come down here and I can confidently say that if I paste this one 8.53 millimeters from the other two, which is kind of challenging sometimes with a mouse, but you get the idea. You can either space it like that, or if you really don't want to fool with the headache of doing it that way, you can also take and copy that line there. Well, if I can get on it, hang on, let me find a corner somewhere where I can get to it. There we go. You can copy that one, paste it, and pull it up and line it with those. Now it'll make this a little easier, from my experience anyway. So it's kind of, you can see where it's kind of grabbing it right there, and it's kind of trying to center it for me. Generally speaking, that's going to have it correct. Now you got to remember, this one's flush against this top edge right here. So if that one's flush against the top edge, the gap between this one and the next one is going to be right here. So you need this space to be even with that space, and so forth and so on. So there's the way that I set this tumbler up to work. Like I said, if you were doing a design that you wanted to just wrap the design all the way around the tumbler, you wouldn't need all these little boxes. But from my experience, guys, and the way that I like to do things is I'll create this little squares like this, because if I'm doing tumblers, there's a good chance that I've got 11 more of them in a box. So once I get this little grid pattern laid out like this, what you'll want to do is just go in here and File, Save As, and I'm going to put in here, because I want to save that grid, Hassel Outfitter Orange Tumbler. And that way, the next time I go to do one, I've already got this saved. So there's your generally speaking, like I said, text, do the same thing. You can create your text. You know that this is the front, this is the back. You've got two evenly sized areas. So if you wanted to put a name over here or some type of text, you can simply go in here, create your text. And if you want to make sure that the text is centered, you can go in and just drag it until it centers on this box, and then copy it. Go down here, paste your other one, and you're going to drag it until it centers in this box. And so now these will be evenly spaced, because there's the same distance between here and here as there is between here and here. So now this text would wrap completely around your cup if you were making it that way. So that's just, like I said, I like having these little visual aids, 60 millimeters wide. That's the area that I've got to engrave. And then the length of this entire little tool line here is going to be the total surface area of the tumbler. So I hope that helps, guys. Hope I didn't confuse anybody, but that works for me. All right, guys, I can't really play with this one a whole lot because it does actually have some drink in it. But this is the tumbler that I did on the S1 here a while back. You may have seen the video that I did. And that was a very similar design, but I wanted to get the black logo. Instead of just the silver, I wanted to do the black logo. And so that was my goal tonight, was to make this one match the shirt. I think I nailed it. I think I've done pretty good. And I hope the process that I'm showing you, there are other ways to do it, guys. But this, to me, seems to be the simplest way to go about is setting this up, engraving it. Now, you're going to have to find your settings. Like I said, settings are going to be up to you. I can give you the settings I used on this one, but if your tumbler is not exactly like this one, those settings may vary. You may not get the black finish. You may get too much heat. There's no telling. So you're going to need to go ahead and prepare for some test materials to be able to get the results that you want. So I hope the video was helpful, guys. I will drop a link down below to my little guide that I built for the F1, as well as a link to the F1 itself if you're interested in checking that thing out. It is pretty handy for events. Got an event this weekend that I'm going to be using it at. But just to let you know, guys, this machine's not going to be fast at these tumblers. It's still only around a 10-watt diode. So it's not going to be fast, but you can do some really, really fine detailed work with it and get these results with the proper settings. So just want to clear that up. Not a speed demon, but it is effective when set up properly. So until next time, guys, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and check out some more of the content. And until then, be safe Have a good day.